Welcome. As you come on into the room, say hey. Let me know who you are. Let me know where you are watching from. If I have interacted with you before, it's certainly a pleasure to interact with you again. And if I've never interacted with you before, hey, this is your first time catching me live or watching me on video or seeing any of my broadcasts, hey. Oh, so just in case you might not know who I am Mrs. Jones, the systems genius, as my husband calls me, the systems magician. And I support company owners and enterprise leaders by helping you make your operations, the way that you operate your company, helping to make that super, super, super simple. I help you develop your systems, your SOPs, help you strategize the deployment of these new systems, and also help you to retain your very happy workforce. So that's who I am. That's what I do. And I was actually going to do this video on Instagram, but I don't have all of the full Instagram privileges yet. And so I didn't know how long this video was going to take. And I didn't want to do it on Instagram and then it take too long. And then Instagram's like, oh, we're going to cut the video off, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I'm doing it here on Facebook, and then I will transfer it over to Instagram. So this video is for all of those who have ears to hear, and I am expounding upon a comment that I made earlier where I said that the idea of having an HR department as it is currently defined is dying. I know a few people in HR who agree with that, and I know a few people in HR who don't. But the reality is, if you are actually paying attention to the trend and you are actually paying attention to what is happening and to what is shifting in the way people are operating their companies, then you will understand that HR, human resources, that department, the idea of having that department is dying. And the reason for that, or a few reasons for that, there's several different reasons, but the few that I wanted to just bring up here is, number one, the HR department is one of the top reasons for dissatisfaction in the workplace, in the workforce, whether that is a remote workforce, which is what a lot of companies are moving towards now, or whether that's a brick and mortar workforce where people are actually coming into the office. The human resources department is actually one of the top reasons for dissatisfaction amongst the workforce. The human resources department is actually one of the biggest bottlenecks when it comes to being able to bring on qualified talent into the company. Historically, human resource departments have not done a very good job of recognizing the trends in terms of what workforce is actually requiring. Right. So right now, the big new shiny thing is diversity and inclusion, right? So a lot of human resources are focusing or a vast majority of the resources available to them on diversity and inclusion, right? Because that's the newest shiny thing. It's the newest shiny thing right now. And as a result, this is costing some companies tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and for the larger enterprises, it's costing them millions of dollars in programs, in consultants, in workshops, and all of these things that are not working. They're not working. Now, I know that there are some people in diversity and inclusion that would not agree with that, and it's totally fine. But the reality is, if you look at what is happening in the workplace, if you look at what is happening, if you look at the future of work, okay, those programs are not working, and they are costing companies millions of dollars, and it's the newest shiny thing, right? Human resources, and again, if we talk about not being, it hasn't historically been very good at recognizing the trends in the future of work. The human resources departments, not just in the United States, but just human resources as a department, as a profession, have continued to fail at change management and have continued to fail at organizational development. That, and given the fact that a lot of the very tangible tasks that HR would normally take care of can now be automated or can be contracted out by companies who have automated systems to be able to provide those services. And so anytime something like this happens, where there is a department that has been so integral to the structure of running a company, and that department starts to get phased out, then what happens a lot of times is company owners will recognize it. Those who pay attention to trends, they will recognize it, and they'll say, oh, okay, so HR is phasing out, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get completely get rid of my HR department. We'll probably keep one person on. And, because we're looking at the future of work, we're looking at trends, we're looking at all of these different things. But what is happening is, when they're getting rid of the HR departments, or phasing out the HR departments, or downsizing the HR departments, they don't really have systems and operations in place to replace what that department was doing. Okay, and that is it's a huge issue right now, because for many companies, the onboarding process for new team members, whether they're employees or contract workers, it's a lot more difficult, and there's a lot more steps than need to be. I should say it's not as smooth. There you go. There are a lot of gaps in efficiency. There are a lot of gaps in continuity, and those gaps in efficiency and those gaps in continuity are actually causing these very large 8-9-figure companies to lose money that they're not really seeing. You don't really see it until at the end, when you're looking at the numbers and you're trying to figure out where it's leaking at. And I can tell you that one of the areas that it's leaking in is in those areas that human resources normally would have taken care of in your onboarding and training process. So what I want to share with you today is what you can do to create and to strengthen your remote workforce and to retain your remote workforce. Now, the principles that I'm going to be discussing today can be used for a workforce that is not remote. They would need to be adjusted. The principles are still the same, but I do want to make it clear that I'm primarily talking to company owners, to enterprise leaders who are working with a remote workforce. Okay. All right. So the other thing too that I want to make very clear here is that we are talking about the future of work. And if you're going to be watching this broadcast, it's going to be really important that you understand that, and to try to not fit what I'm saying into what you currently know or into what you currently believe about work. We are talking about the future of work. So I am talking about things that you need to implement now, things that you need to have in place now, so that you are prepared 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years from now with your remote workforce. Okay? Okay. So let's begin, shall we? By the way, I'm outside here on my deck, and there's our neighbor has some people working in his yard, so you're going to hear like a lot of talking, and if you hear that, excuse me, but it is what it is. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to evaluate. The age of companies being able to thrive on a workforce that is comprised of just regular employees or contractors who are qualified to do the job is also ending. If you desire for your company to thrive in the future, in the new age of work, in the future of work, then you are going to need intrapreneurs. Not just people who are qualified on paper to do the work that needs to be done because they have the degree, or because they have the certifications, or because they have the previous experience. That is no longer going to be enough to have a company that really thrives in this age of remote work. So you're going to need to have people who are working for you, people who are working with you, who are invested in the vision that you have for your organization, in the vision that you have for your company, and who can see themselves bringing the totality, the best of the best of the best of their skills, talents, and abilities to be able to bring that mission to fruition, to be able to bring that vision to pass. So here are some questions that you need to be asking. One of those questions is, what do you understand the vision of this company to be? Now, this question, the way that they answer the question and the question that they give you is going to give you some insight into a few things. It's going to give you some insight, obviously, into whether or not they actually understand what the vision of the company is, or if they even know, or if they even care, right? So it's going to give you some insight into that. But it's also going to give you some insight into whether or not you have clearly articulated. Hey there, beautiful. How are you, big sister Khadija? Thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's going to give you some insight into whether or not you have actually really clearly articulated what that vision is. So the next question that you would need to ask is, where do you see yourself in that vision? And this is an extremely important question, because if they can't answer that question, you need to let them go. I'm going to say that again. Oh, I'm well. Thank you so much for asking, beautiful. I'm going to say that again. If you ask the question, where do you see yourself in the vision of our company, and your team member cannot answer that question, you need to let them go. You need to let him or her go. Because what that says to you is that he or she is not invested enough in the vision of your company to ensure that the work that they do for you is being done with excellence. This person is not invested enough in the vision of your company to ensure that they're bringing the best of their skills, talents, and abilities to the work that you have hired them to do. And you're going to hear me say this a lot. Let them go, let them go, let them go. And I want to be clear about this. When you let them go, what happens is you create space for someone else who is passionate about what your company is here to do, and who desires to bring the best of the best of the best of their skills, talents, and abilities, and to use that to bring the vision of your company to pass. You also create space for this other person. When you let them go, you create space for them to find a company that they are really passionate about, that they can really feel good about bringing their skills, talents, and abilities to the table. Because again, if we're talking about the future of work, and you're going to hear me reiterate that, we're talking about the future of work. And in the future of work, people want to do work that they feel good about. It used to be that you could run your company and the bottom line was this person got the work done, right? I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you like it here. I don't care if you're passionate about it. If you've got the skills, we've got some money to help you pay the bills. That is not, if COVID-19 did not show you anything, it should have shown you that. The future of work requires that people do work that they feel good about. So if they can't see themselves in the vision for your company, they don't need to be there. Does that make sense? Okay. The next question that you need to ask is, what skills, talents, and abilities do you desire to bring forth to bring that vision to fruition? This is going to give you some insight in whether or not the work that you have your team member doing is actually if you actually have them in the space where they can serve you at their highest and their best. So you've heard me say this before. If you've watched me over the last couple of weeks, I used to work in call centers for many years, and I've worked for call centers. I have worked for very large companies that were owned by individuals that weren't public. And I would see this a lot where you've got this person and they are excited about the company. They're really interested in the company. They're vested into the company. But the position that they're in is not, it's not where their skills, talents, and abilities are, right? So you're getting work from this person, but you're not getting their heart invested, soul aligned kind of work, right? And if we look at the future of work, this is the kind of work, the kind of energy that is going to be required to move companies forward. And when I say companies, I mean companies that are not solopreneurs. If you're a solopreneur and you do all of the work, you do all of the things, and then yeah, this doesn't necessarily apply to you, yeah? But for those of you who have staff in any capacity, whether they're employees or contractors, okay, you want to ensure that the position that you have them in is allowing them to bring those skills, talents, and abilities, the best of the best, right? Because I can be a good customer service representative, but if I'm an even better back end customer experience developer, then the best of the best of the best of what I have to give is there and not necessarily in customer service. Okay? So you want to ask them, what skills, talents, and abilities do you want to bring to the table to bring that to fruition, to bring our vision to fruition? And then the next question is, are you able to utilize those skills in your current position? If the answer is no, then you have three choices. You can figure out what that position is and move them. You can create a new position, or you can let them go. I'm going to say that again. You can move them to a position that allows them to bring the best of the best of the best of their skills, talents, and abilities to towards bringing your company vision to fruition. You could create another position if your company has the capacity to do that, or you can let them go. Because if they are not able to bring the best of the best of the best of their skills, talents, and abilities to your organization, eventually they will develop a resentment for your company. And that's when you start to see the quality of the work diminish. And so it is best for you to part ways so that you can fill that position with someone for whom that position is an absolute heart-centered, soul-aligned fit, as opposed to trying to hold on to someone who really doesn't have a passion for what they are doing simply because they have the degree or they have the certification or they have the skills that are necessary to complete the job. Okay? If the answer to that question is yes, so if you ask them, are you able to use those, are you able to bring those skills in your current position? And they say yes. Then the next question is, okay, well then great. What do you need from the company to help you do it better? And whatever the answer is that you receive, you need to determine if that fits within the values and the vision of your company. If that fits within the values and the vision of your company, then make it happen. If it doesn't fit within the values or the vision of your company, then let them go. Because what they are asking for is not in alignment with the vision that you have for your company. One of the things that we believe with our company in building what we're building is that our company serves us first, right? Our company, it gets to play a role in the story that is our lives. That's the reason why our lives aren't centered around what we do as a profession, right? Our company is supportive of our family vision, of our family values, of our family goals, right? So it serves us. And then our company serves our employees or our contractors, whoever works for us. Our company serves them. So see, this is a two-way street, right? If I am requiring that someone who works for me bring the absolute best of the best of the best of her skills or his skills, talents, and abilities to bringing our company vision to fruition, then I also have a responsibility to provide the tools and the resources and the experiences that set them up to be able to do that with excellence, with the highest efficiency, right? That's my responsibility. And so if I ask this question of someone who works for us, and what they give back is not something that aligns with the values of our company, then I have a responsibility to release that person, because I cannot and am not willing to provide what they are telling me is necessary for them to bring the best of the best of the best of their soul-aligned, heart-centered skills, talents, and abilities to the bringing forth of our company vision. Now I'm going to say this again because I know people are popping in and out, and you may be popping in the middle of something. I'm talking about the future of work. I'm not talking about what you think work looks like now. I'm not talking about what work has been. I'm not talking about the limiting beliefs that you have around the workforce. I'm talking about what work looks like for the future and the energy that is going to be necessary to move companies forward. Okay? All right, so that was the first part, right? The first part was evaluating your workforce, okay? The second part here is retraining your team leaders, your project managers, and anyone else who is a part of your leadership or managerial staff. Now, before anything else that I'm about to say can work, before any of this could work, you must have already created and outlined a growth path for your leaders. Before anything I'm about to say can be of any value, before anything I'm about to say can actually work, you must have already created a growth path for your leaders. Because if you've not, then what happens is your leaders become too afraid and too concerned with whether or not the people who report to them are going to take their positions, because where there is no growth, there can be no security. There's no security in lack of growth. Okay? So earlier when I started this broadcast, I said, you know, the human resources department is one of the biggest contributors to dissatisfaction in the workplace amongst your workforce. Poor managerial staff is another contributor to dissatisfaction in the workforce. And having worked for several companies, one of the things that I have found is that oftentimes when you have managers that produce less than desirable results, a lot of times it's because they don't have a growth path. There's nowhere else for them to go. And if there is, it hasn't been outlined, it hasn't been shown to them. And so they're so concerned with maintaining their position and making sure that the people who report to them don't steal their position from them, that there's really no incentive to support the growth of the people who report to them. Okay? So before anything that I can tell you is going to work, you're going to have that created. You're going to have that built out. Okay? Now, when you look at your team leaders, your project managers, anyone else on your managerial staff, anyone else anyone else in your leadership staff, if they are not intrapreneurs with a deep passion that is fulfilled by bringing forth the vision of your company, let them go. Let them go. Let them go. Because the last thing that you need is someone in your leadership staff, someone on your leadership team who is not excited and passionate about the vision for your company. Because that lack of excitement, that lack of devotion, that lack of commitment, that lack of loyalty is going to find itself in your staff, in the people who work for you, because they're reporting to someone who does not have a vested interest in ensuring that the vision of your company comes to fruition. So if you're as you're evaluating your leadership staff, your team leaders, your project managers, your sales team leaders, your customer service team leaders, your managers, anyone who is in a position of leadership in your organization, if they are not entrepreneurs with a deep passion for making sure that your vision comes to pass, you need to let them go. Okay? So once you've done that evaluation and you're entering into the retraining process, now you need to teach them to be highly invested in who is brought on to their team, your teams, so that they can be an active part of the hiring process. Because if you have people on your leadership teams, managers, leaders, sales team leaders, whatever, and they are invested in your vision, then what happens is as you are bringing people in to join the team, they're going to be looking at these people through the eyes of whether or not they have the same passion and vested interest in bringing your company vision to fruition. So you see, now you have this army of people who are willing to be, give me the words, please, who are like literally willing to stand guard in your company as a barrier between your company and anybody who would fill out a job application who would not be vested in your company vision. Okay. Now, from there, you show them and you yourself begin to ask more questions about a candidate's willingness to commit to your company, and fewer questions about their degrees and their certifications and their previous work experience. Now, I know that is completely counter to everything else that is being taught. I know. I'll explain here in a minute. Let me give you the next piece of this and I'll explain. Ask more questions that specifically relate to the very specific tasks that you need to be completed. Okay? So let me give you an example. Recently, we had considered, or we thought that HoneyBook would be the best customer relationship management tool for our business. Okay, we thought we're no longer using HoneyBook at this time, but we thought that was the direction that we wanted to go in. Okay, and the first VA that we have is in Spain. And unfortunately, HoneyBook does not allow for collaboration, right? So she could have a HoneyBook account in Spain. We could have a HoneyBook account here in the United States. But unfortunately, those two accounts can't collaborate. And she can't collaborate on our account because she's not here. So we said, okay, we're going to find somebody who, rather than, at the time, rather than migrate everything to a brand new tool, we decided that we were just going to try to find somebody else who could do what we needed done in HoneyBook. Okay. Now, one of the things that I do, because operations, it's a thing. It's what I do. Operations and systems. It's what I like. It's what I love. It's a thing. It's in my blood. I go places and I naturally look at the operations, right? It's a thing. So because of that, before we introduce a new system or before we're going to use a new tool, I will go in and play with it, right? I can't tell you how much money I've spent probably over the last 3 or 4 months just playing with different tools, right? So I'll get in there and I'll play with it. And so in going in there and playing with HoneyBook, one of the things that I found was that the contract feature was a bit sophisticated. Okay, it's a bit sophisticated, and so when we were looking for someone to hire to take care of our HoneyBook, one of the things that I was very specific about was the need for this person to understand and to be able to work with the sophistication of the contract feature in HoneyBook. And so when we started putting out job ads, we put some things here, put some things there. We threw some things out on Facebook, threw a couple of things out on Instagram. And so when we were doing that, we were getting applications back, and some of the applications were, I'm a this and this and this certified such and such and such and such. I am a this and this and this, this is my degree and this is my da 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 da. And I used to work with, we actually had a couple of people who responded and said, I worked with a Fortune 500 company who used HoneyBook and blah, 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 blah. And all of that was great. And it was amazing and it was cool, right? But what I found is that when I asked very specific questions about being able to navigate the contract feature in HoneyBook, most of them were not able to answer those questions. I asked them very specific questions about being able to complete certain tasks, specifically with the contract feature. They weren't able to answer those questions, at least not in a way that satisfied me. And it was very interesting, because what that showed me was that the fact that you have previously worked for Fortune 500 companies, and the fact that you have 4 degrees and 192 certifications means absolutely nothing to me if you cannot complete the very specific tasks that I need completed. So it's possible for somebody to be HoneyBook certified. There are people who are Dubsado certified. There are people who are ClickUp certified. There are people who are certified in all kinds of different tools. And that's great. Business systems analysts, automations analysts, blah, 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 blah. That is wonderful that you went through the education and that you got the stamp of approval from a certifying body that says that we stamp you and approve you to do this thing. But if you cannot complete the very specific tasks that I need completed, I am not going to provide the time and the energy that is necessary to train you on that thing. And so when you're asking questions about degrees, and you're asking questions about certifications, and you're asking questions about work experience, I'm not saying that those things aren't important. What I am saying, though, is that they are not as important as 2 things. This person's willingness to bring the best of the best of the best of the best of their skills, talents, and abilities to the bringing of your vision to fruition. And this person's ability to quickly and efficiently complete the very specific tasks that you need done in that role. Okay? So then the last item that I want to add this is that with your leadership team, with your managerial staff, you want to incentivize them not only for managing the KPIs and all of those different things, right? But also for being able to facilitate the growth and the expansion of the other intrapreneurs who report to them. Now, why is this going to be important? Because again, if COVID-19 has not shown you anything, it should have shown you this one thing. People want to do work that they feel good about. And your opinion about whether or not that is vanilla, or whether or not that is soft, or whether or not that is whatever, your opinion on that when it comes to the future of work does not matter. There are people who are being called back to work, and because they don't enjoy the work that they were doing, or because they weren't being paid enough, one of those 2 things, they are literally not going back to work in what many would consider to be a recession in the economy. Because that is how serious and how passionate people are about doing work that they love to do. Now, how beautiful would that be to be able to have someone in your team, on your organization, in your company, who is that passionate about what they do, and to bring that passion into your company, into your organization, to help build your enterprise. How amazing would that be? And so you want to start incentivizing your leadership team for being able to participate and facilitate the growth of the other intrapreneurs who report to them. Okay? So now I want to move on to your onboarding system. Okay? I'm going to show you how to create. I'm going to give you step by step how to create a very simple onboarding system for your remote workers. Okay? Very, very simple. It is going to take some work on the back end, or it's going to take some work on the front end. But if you do exactly what I tell you to do, exactly the way I tell you to do it, it will work. It always does. Okay? So let's get into your onboarding system. I'm going to break down for you exactly how to create this system for your remote workforce. Okay? Number 1, You need to document all of your processes and procedures. All of them. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. This is how you're going to create your SOPs, or your standard operating procedures. You need to document every single one of your processes. So you have each person on your team outline all of the steps for what they do, step by step by step by step. And if possible, it would be super, super, super awesome if you could get that in written form, in video form, and audio form. Because again, remember, this is about onboarding a remote workforce, okay? Which means that, you know, how awesome would it be for someone to be at home doing their dishes and listening, being able to listen to some of their onboarding, listen to some of their training, or being able to watch some of their training or read it. So this is a whole other conversation about making sure that you're hitting all of the people in the different ways that they learn. Totally different conversation, but it would be totally awesome if you could get it in all three forms. If you can't, it's cool. Get it in the form that's easiest to get it. But you do need to get it. Okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to take all of those SOPs, all of those step-by-step processes, and you're going to organize them by department, and then you're going to organize them by role. Okay, so if you have, or you could organize them by function, right? That's another way you could organize them, is by function. So if you, let's say you have a social media function, a social media area, right? Then you've got graphic design, right? Whoever does your graphic design creates the little boxes, creates the little squares, creates the little infographics, right? There might be some processes for that. There might be somebody who actually writes the copy, unless you write the copy yourself. But even if you write the copy of yourself, then that needs to be included in those steps, that I am the one who writes the copy. Okay, there may be the management of the social media. So that means, you know, who's the person, or what's the role of managing the Meet Edgar or the SmartAQ or the Planoly or the Hootsuite or whatever it is that you're using to automate that. So you want to organize it by role, by department, by role, by function. Okay, then you're going to get yourself a project management tool. Okay, now this can be Google Docs if you want to go super, super basic. This can be ClickUp. It can be Kajabi. It could be, even though Kajabi isn't necessarily a project management tool, you could use it as a project management tool. If your company is familiar with that. You could use Trello, you could use ClickUp, Asana, Trello. You know, there's a myriad. There's, you know, Teamwork, there's Rike, there's a myriad of different project management tools that you can use. Okay, but you want to get yourself something. Okay, you want to have something. And then you're going to create what I call a welcome section. You can call it welcome, you could call it onboarding, you can call it whatever it is that you want to call it. I'm going to name it welcome section, okay? So you're going to create a welcome section for each department in that tool. And if you have it broken down by role and function, you know, maybe you have a specific person for each role, or a specific person for each function, or maybe you have one person that has like 10 functions. You know, however you have that broken down and organized, you want to organize that in that project management tool. Then you're going to take those SOPs and you're going to put them into their respective sections in your tool. So if you're using folders in Google Docs, if you're using spaces in Asana or a Planoly, if you're using, you know, workspaces in Trainual, if you're using kind of like course-like sections in Kajabi, whatever that is, you want to organize each of those SOPs, you know, each of those areas in their respective department. Okay? Now what happens is when you bring on a new team member, You send them the access link to their respective welcome section. So whatever the section or whatever the space is that that is their role, right? That has all of the things that they're responsible for. And you make it a requirement that they go through all of that information. And so now what happens is any additional training time is actually spent on tasks that require hands-on facilitation. So for example, if you have a sales team, there's going to be a lot of processes, okay, that, you know, typically HR would have trained or typically another department would have done, but that really could be done. You know, have you ever been to a meeting and you're like, this whole meeting could have been an email? It's kind of like that, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to take all of that stuff, and that stuff becomes automated. They can go through that on their own, and they have the responsibility of going through that on their own. And now the actual hands-on time is actually spent on tasks that require hands-on training. So for example, if you're bringing on people onto your sales team, right, you don't need to have a meeting with them specifically about how they're getting paid. I mean, it's really simple. You could create a video, you could create an audio, you could create a document that shows them exactly how they get paid. You get paid twice a month, on the 15th and the last day of the month, and this is what your commission structure looks like. If you have any questions, please send an email, right? They don't need somebody to stand there and facilitate them understanding their commission structure. Right? They don't need somebody, if you're working with somebody in social media, like you've got somebody that handles your social media, they don't need somebody to stand there and facilitate them learning what the font is, or learning what the colors are, or learning what the logo is, right? They don't need somebody to like stand there and facilitate that, right? So you're going to take all of those things that don't actually need to be facilitated, and you put them into that section. When you bring on your new remote team member, you give them a link to that section. Make it a requirement that they go through that material. And so now hands-on training is, if we're talking about a sales team, yes, maybe you need to do some role plays, and that becomes hands-on training, right? But the time is spent on things that produce money, on money-producing activities. Okay? So that's how that works. Okay? Now, if you have heard everything that I have said and you listened to what I said about, you know, creating the onboarding system, and you're like, listen, I hear you. I get it. It makes a lot of sense, and that sounds awesome. But guess what? I don't have the time to do that. And with now let me go back, okay? Before we do that part, the first two things that I talked about, you know, when I was talking about like evaluating your staff, retraining your team leaders, those kinds of things, you're gonna have to find the time to do that. Somebody in your organization is going to have to make the time to do that. Somebody, okay? And it's the same thing with creating the onboarding system. Somebody's gonna have to do it. Somebody's gonna have to create the time. Now, if you look at this and you say, listen, I don't have the time, and honestly, with where we are in our business or in our company right now, the people who are working for me are on, I have them doing other things. I can't spare that workforce. I get it. It makes sense. It sounds wonderful. It sounds amazing. It's what I want to do. But right now, I can't spare the time, and I cannot spare the workforce to be able to get that done. Then you need to schedule a session with me. Because if you can't find the time, and if you can't spare the workforce, then we'll do it for you. So instead of you utilizing your resources in the form of the people who are currently working for you, we will bring our resources forth to support you in making sure that these things are done. Okay? So if you can't spare your team to do this, then we will use our team to do this. on your behalf for your company. Okay? So there's three different ways. There's three different ways that you can go about doing this. You could schedule a strategy session. You could schedule a VIP day, or you could schedule what we call a 3-day sprint. And I'm going to break down for you what each of those means. Okay? If you schedule a strategy session, what that means is we're going to start by doing a complete audit of all of the systems, all of your systems. We have a list of systems that we evaluate. It's pretty extensive. We're going to do a complete audit of all of your systems. Now, I want to be clear. We don't do this audit so that we could judge you, right? So if it's kind of like taped, you know, if your back end is like this, it's fine. I don't care, right? Like, I don't care. I don't care that it's, you know, all over the place, or that it's unorganized, or that it's chaotic, or that it's not streamed. Like, I don't care, right? Because if it was streamlined, then we wouldn't be having a conversation, yeah? So it's not, this is not about like judging you and blah, 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 right? And most of y'all probably don't even care about that. But for those who might, I just needed to go ahead and say that. It's not about judging you, right? We wanna audit your systems because we want to get a realistic view of where you currently are and where you actually need the support that we can offer. Okay. So when we do that systems audit, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for any gaps in efficiency, any gaps in continuity in the experience. So whether it's for your clients or whether it's for your workforce, okay? We're gonna look for any redundancies that you have in those systems or in those processes. We're gonna look for areas, any areas in those processes where you have certain dependencies that are just not being met. And the way that you know that that's happening is when you're in situations where you kind of have to start over all the time, or things have to be repeated, things have to continuously be redone. A lot of that is due to the fact that there are certain dependencies in those processes that are being missed, right? So we're gonna help you identify those. Then from there, we're gonna give you what's called a systems for your company plan. And in that plan, we're going to outline a revised and more efficient process for each of the systems that we evaluated. Okay, so if we look at your hiring system and your onboarding system and your client delivery and your lead generation and this and this and this, we're going to give you a more revised, outline, more efficient process for each system, with step-by-step instructions on exactly how to streamline it, exactly how to automate it, what parts can be automated, what parts shouldn't be automated. We're going to give you exactly, you know, how to put that together. Okay? We're going to give you suggestions on how to automate it. We're going to offer you suggestions on tools that you can use. So if you have certain tools that you're using, we'll give you suggestions on how to more efficiently use those tools. So if you have a tool that if you have tools that you're using right now that you really, really like and you don't want to change, then what we want to do is we want to look at those tools and find out how you can use those tools more efficiently to streamline your processes, okay, to simplify your operations. If you have tools that you're using, or if you don't have any tools that you're using, and you're like, listen, we use this, but we're open to changing, whatever, then we'll give you some suggestions on tools that may be more aligned with the values that you have, okay? Then we're going to organize those revisions in the order in which they should be handled based on what you tell us your goals are. So if we take a look at 10 of your systems and we say, okay, we're going to give you step-by-step instructions for how to streamline, simplify, and automate each of those systems. Then we're going to take those systems and we're going to put them in an order and say, okay, of these 10 systems, these are going to be your top 3. Of these top 3, this should be your number 1 focus. And that's going to be based on what you tell us your goals are. Okay. Then what you can do with that systems for your company plan is you can hand that plan over to your operations manager, you can hand it over to your project manager, or whoever is your is the senior leader that you have in terms of training or project implementation. Whoever your implementation person is, the person who's going to roll that out or manage that project and make it happen, you can take that plan directly to them, and all they have to do is follow it step by step by step by step by step to get all of your processes streamlined, organized, and simplified. Okay, so that's the strategy session. The VIP day it begins with the strategy session. Okay, so you get the strategy session, you get that systems for your company plan. But what we're going to do is, if you do not have a project management tool, or if you have a project management tool and maybe you don't know how to use it, or maybe you're not using, you're just like, I just kind of throw things in there, whatever the situation may be, or if you don't have a tool, if you don't have a tool, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you some guidance in terms of which tool to choose based on your values. Okay, so if you've been hearing me, we believe in creating companies and basing your operations and choosing tools based on how those tools can support your values and not necessarily on the features. Okay, so we're going to give you some guidance on which tool to choose. Okay, once you choose your project management tool, then what we're going to do is we're going to actually build out that project management tool for you. So we'll go ahead and put your logo in there. We'll do all of the things on the back end to get the tool ready for you. Then we're going to take that top priority projects. Remember, from the strategy session, after we do the systems audit, we order them. Okay, these are your top 3. This is the number 1 project. We're going to take that project and we're going to input those steps into a project management tool. So we're going to set up the flow of the tool. We're going to put the step-by-steps in there. We're going to put all of that in there. We're going to assign, whoever needs to handle what based on who you've got in your organization. We're going to set that entire project up in that project management tool. Then we're going to train you how to use it, and then we'll hand it over to you. So now, not only do you have the systems for your company plan that's got the strategy on how you're going to automate these processes, how you're going to simplify the processes, how you're going to create processes and systems that you don't have, but now you have your number 1 project already built into a project management tool, and literally all you do is you turn that tool over to your operations manager, project manager, executive assistant, whoever you have in charge of those things. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They follow everything in that tool step by step by step. And the beautiful thing about having it in the project management tool is that you can actually monitor the progress of how it's getting done. Okay, so we go ahead and we set that up for you. So that's what happens on the VIP day. Okay, in the 3-day sprint, the first day is your VIP day. So that's the strategy session. We're going to prioritize. We're going to take your number 1 project and build it out into your project management tool. Okay. On days 2 and 3, we're going to spend 8 hours on each day towards the completion of as much of that project as is humanly possible. So what does this mean? This means that not only is it already in the project management tool, but we are actually going to be the ones to do the thing. So if you can't spare the workforce, we're going to use our workforce. Okay, so we're going to use our workforce to do what you can't spare your workforce to do. Okay, so we're actually going to build the system out for you. We're going to set up all the tools that are a part of that system. We're going to organize the SOPs, or at least create the containers where those SOPs go. So let me give you an example. If we do your strategy session, go through your VIP day, and we determine that, Peace Master Fee, how are you? And we determine that your number 1 project should be to refine your client onboarding system. Let's say that we determine that's what your number 1 project should be. Then what we would do is we would go in and we would set up the entire client onboarding journey. We would set up all the tools. We would set up all the workflows. We would input all of your contracts. Okay, so here's the thing. We don't write your contracts from scratch. But if you have a contract template that you would like for us to use and you just want us to replace it with your desired info, then we'll adjust the template based on what you give us. So we won't write your project, we won't write your contracts from scratch, because that's a legal liability thing, and we don't want to be responsible for that. If you watch the video that I did yesterday when we were talking about what we're committed to doing, what we're committed to not doing, we're not going to get into any of the legal stuff. But if you have the contracts, you have the templates, we will take those templates and input them into the tools as a part of the workflow to build out that journey, okay? We would set up your invoices, set up your proposals, organize your SOPs. So we would basically, in those 2 days, 8 hours each day, so those additional 16 hours, we would build out as much of that system as is humanly possible in those next 2 days. Okay, so that is the difference between the strategy session, the VIP day, and the 3-day sprint. All right, so if you've heard all of this and you're still not sure, what you need, or you feel like you need something that's more customized, or if you have more questions, then what I want you to do is I want you to go to the link in my bio, and I want you to schedule a discovery call. Okay. It's super, super quick. It's 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you a few questions just to get an idea of where you are and how it is that we can really serve you. And then at the end of that call, we're going to go ahead and enroll you into whatever session, or book whatever session or whatever program piece is going to be the absolute best to serve you and your company where you are. Okay? So that's it. That is all. I hope that this was helpful. If this was helpful to you, I'm going to ask that you please like and share this so that we can get our message across. We definitely want to make sure that this message travels. And yeah, that's it. That is it. That is all. Click the link in my bio to schedule your session with us, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.